you alongside my friend Casper, making the drive up to the Dolphin Club. It's the route that we usually take as we go through 49ers news from the day. It was a loaded day out in Santa Clara. Obviously, the 49ers had a mini bye, so Kyle Shanahan hasn't spoken in quite some time. Ambry Thomas got picked up off waivers claimed by the Indianapolis Colts, and now Ambry Thomas and Samuel Womack III are teammates, both of ex-49ers. Womack, a fifth-round pick out of Toledo. Ambry Thomas, the third-round pick out of Michigan. I'm sure that part of Indianapolis's claim was the success of Samuel Womack with them. That was minor news away from the 49ers facility. The more interesting stuff came inside. Shanahan talking about potentially picking up another linebacker this past offseason ahead of Devondre Campbell, not named Eric Kendricks. We don't know who that linebacker is, but apparently Devondre Campbell was choice number 3, not just choice number 2 for the 49ers. But mainly we got some hints regarding Trent Williams, regarding Deebo Samuel, and regarding Brock Purdy. Just how the 49ers think of those 3 players. Those hints aren't slam dunk clues. Well, they are clues, but they aren't slam dunk decisions as to what the 49ers will do regarding each of those 3 players moving forward, either keeping them on the roster or through contractual situations. But it all is information that I can present as intel as we discuss the 49ers. Robert Yates just commented O-line. Yeah, we're going to talk about O-line. Trent Williams is an offensive lineman. Let's start there. Let's start with Trent because that seems to be one of the things that everybody's buzzing about right now. There are some retirement rumors again. Death, taxes, and Trent Williams retirement rumors started out of nowhere on the 49ers internet ecosystem. That just seems to be par for the course. I can tell you what the facts of the case are, and I can tell you what my conversations with Trent Williams have been like over the past few months. Shortly after he signed his current contract, which was a reworked deal, a lot more guaranteed money entering this season, Trent talked a lot about wanting to play past the age of 40, wanting to redefine the offensive tackle position with excellent play at an advanced age. And this was both in press conference gaggles and with me one-on-one, just talking to him one-on-one at his locker without a camera up in his face or anything. He absolutely meant wanting to play past 40. And he's my age right now. Trent Williams and I are the same age. We're 36 years old. So I'm going to show you guys as we make the turn here. We got to see the wheel making that turn. There we go. It's the only left turn in quite some time here as we move our way through San Francisco. Anyway, so that's where Trent Williams' mind was at the start of this season. It obviously could have changed. I mean, a lot's happened. He's gotten hurt. I get that. But also he suffered tragedy at home. His twins died. One was delivered stillborn, and another one died during pregnancy. So Trent Williams has had a trying season. I actually haven't talked to him in a couple weeks. I last saw him in the knee scooter talking to Nick Bosa in the locker room. That was right around the time that tragedy did strike for Trent Williams and his family. But I have gotten no indication that he's thinking about his future football career any differently. So I think it would be awfully premature to speculate along the lines of something that's different than what Trent Williams talked about at the start of this season. And he fought through the current ankle issue to play against Seattle. He was in some pain. You could tell watching his pregame workout before the 49ers took on the Seahawks. He was going to grit through the ankle issue in that game. And to me, that says a lot about this guy's desire and, potential to play beyond this season. So I think that's that. I think that Trent Williams, there should be no reason to doubt his desire to play beyond this season until he says something a little bit different. He wants to win that Super Bowl. Trent Williams is a competitor. He's one of the all-time greats, but he wants to make sure that he continues adding to that legacy. And a lot of people look at winning a championship as a necessary part of that legacy. And you know what? The 49ers still are not far away. They're not going to get it done this year in all likelihood, but they still have a lot of good players, and they hope that much better fortune is around the corner. That brings me to the Deebo Samuel discussion. This one is really, really interesting because obviously the statistics are worse than they've ever been in his NFL career. And it has appeared that, you know, to the naked eye, I could see why some people think this. It has appeared that Deebo Samuel is not moving as quickly. I don't want to say that he's not moving as fast because we've seen really good top line speed from Deebo Samuel this season on the kick returns against Green Bay and against Buffalo. But the foot quickness, and I've talked to some people who know what they're watching in this regard. There have been some questions about his foot quickness, and that is something that applies in short areas on some of the runs, and obviously foot quickness applies to getting open at the receiver position. Today, Kyle Shanahan said that he doesn't think that Deebo Samuel has slowed down at all. Now, he didn't delve into specifics if he was talking about straight line speed or foot quickness, but in answering the question, Kyle Shanahan did provide some perspective that I do think has been missing from the Deebo Samuel discourse. Remember that Deebo had a really good training camp. That was all the talk coming out of training camp. He was the lightest that he had ever been entering training camp. While Brandon Ayuk was standing there watching as part of his hold-in, Deebo Samuel seemed to be having good day after good day at training camp. So we can't just conveniently forget history from a couple months ago. Deebo Samuel did look really good during that camp. On top of that, Deebo Samuel went for 8 catches and over 100 yards in week 2 against Minnesota, a really good Minnesota defense. So it's not like this entire season has been without production for Deebo Samuel. Over 100 yards against Minnesota's defense in week 2, and I thought that he looked explosive, and I thought that he looked strong in that game. That's worth noting. Where people tend to lose the narrative on Samuel, where they tend to, go off the deep end, is that they just forget about the adversity of earlier this season. The guy went to the hospital due to pneumonia, and that was after he did get hurt in that Minnesota game, and that sidelined him against the Rams. It was an oblique injury that can really affect everything. The core muscles, those are connected to everything in the body. So it's very apparent to me that early momentum from this season that Deebo Samuel had was derailed by some things that didn't go his way early on. So when we talk about, okay, Deebo is posting his worst season statistically and he doesn't look quite the same right now as he has in the past, it's not necessarily a function of him hitting some kind of wall in his longer-term career. Maybe it's just a function of him hitting pneumonia and an early season injury and then not being able to firmly bounce back from that within the course of the 2024 season. It's at least a possibility that is worth discussing, and I don't think that people have discussed it quite enough. And Kyle Shanahan happened to bring it up today. Now, when we apply this to Deebo Samuel's future with the 49ers, he's under contract through 2025. So they still have him for one more year. I think that a lot of his struggles this year, and Kyle Shanahan even acknowledged so today, can be traced back to struggles from Kyle Shanahan himself, from the situations that Deebo Samuel has been put into. But does that mean that these struggles are something that the 49ers might have to permanently live with just because the offense as it has evolved under Shanahan and with quarterback Brock Purdy simply isn't a Deebo-centric offense anymore? This is a receiver who never has been a great separator. He hadn't been an X type of receiver. This is a receiver who's just been an absolute bulldog out on the field. He's been a bulldozer on the football field. He's somebody who's taken short passes and turned them into massive gains on a consistent basis. And yes, I get that the intermediate pass game has also been part of Deebo Samuel's repertoire. But Deebo is Deebo because of the yards after the catch. And the 49ers offense this year ranking last in yards after the catch, facing a big downturn in short passes, not throwing nearly as many screens. The 49ers offense based around Purdy's intermediate game much more so than Jimmy Garoppolo's short game. Is that really the situation that's going to be conducive to Deebo Samuel's max efficiency, regardless of whether or not he's had to deal with pneumonia and has had to deal with an injury? That's the longer-term team-building question that the 49ers ask. How well does Deebo Samuel fit with Brock Purdy? Is that what you're going to want in that Z receiver role? Because even if he, has only slowed down slightly, can't say not at all because he was so awesome in that 2021 season. He was an all-pro. He would have been good in any system. But if there are any questions with the 49ers about his fit with this quarterback and the evolution of this system in particular, that's where they're going to have to make a potential decision in this 2025 offseason. But he does remain under contract for one more year. It's not even guaranteed at this point that the 49ers, though, will be in the luxury of being able to think this way, because Brandon Ayuk suffered not only an ACL tear, but there was more damage to his knee. We don't know when Brandon Ayuk's going to be back yet. So you've got to talk about weapons for the 49ers and how they're going to look at the start of the 2025 season on a collective basis, right? Brandon Ayuk helped everybody get open with how well he performed in 2023 at the X spot. It made Deebo Samuel better. It made Jawan Jennings better. It made Christian McCaffrey better. And it was symbiotic. Those guys also did their job, and that's what you have to have. You have to have that symbiotic, everybody helps everybody relationship within an offense if you're going to be one of the historically best offenses of all time. And the 49ers, we saw comparisons in terms of the advanced metrics to an offense like the greatest show on turf from about a quarter century ago with the Rams. So all of that has to be considered into the thinking when the 49ers are building out their 2025 team. And if somebody like Brandon Ayuk may not be ready for week one or may not be close to healthy for a lot of the season, again, we don't know there, well, then you have to think even longer and harder about any potential decision to move on from Deebo Samuel. You have to make sure that the repertoire is as strong as possible to begin 2025. And that's the crappy situation about this. Injuries can carry over from year to year. We're not sure exactly where Brandon Ayuk is going to be. But I do think it's important that the second that he does step out on the field, he's on his way to returning to elite status for the 49ers. They cannot have the 2024 version of Brandon Ayuk coming back from this knee injury because that version was ineffective. They're going to have an effective, big-time version of Ayuk that opens up the offense the way that he did in 2023. So those were Kyle Shanahan's thoughts on Deebo Samuel today. You can't read too far in either direction from them, but you can glean more context about Deebo's performance, which certainly hasn't been good this season. You can glean more context from what Kyle Shanahan talked about because we saw a much better version of Deebo Samuel earlier this season than we have later, and there's been a whole heck of a lot of adversity hitting this entire 49ers team, including Deebo Samuel, in the couple months since then. Then Brock Purdy. This was fascinating to me. Kyle Shanahan went into a lot of detail about the interception play. Darius Williams, the Rams cornerback, intercepted Purdy over in the corner. And, the casual reaction to that from the critics is, oh, Purdy should have just checked it down. It's rarely as simple as the casual critics say. And this is another such case. And I think Kyle Shanahan found it necessary to color the situation with context there was poor pass protection on the play. The Rams got a lot of pressure on the 49ers against the right side. That was the side that Purdy was looking toward to make the throw. Shanahan also pointed out that there was illegal contact on the play that wasn't called, and that Juwan Jennings was broken off of his route about 12 yards away from the line of scrimmage, and that none of that can happen past the 5-yard mark of the line of scrimmage. So Shanahan's point was like, yeah, in a perfect world, Purdy doesn't throw that ball because Juwan Jennings isn't broken off of his route, or if he is broken off of his route, you don't throw that ball because he's obviously not there to catch it. But this was no perfect world. It was a muddy pocket, and there was no flag thrown, and Juwan Jennings didn't even have a chance to commit offensive pass interference that could have saved the play and prevented Darius Williams from intercepting the football. I think there's a lesson here for critics and for wannabe analysts. Football, just like life, is often not going to be set up perfectly. And sometimes, pardon my French, shit happens. Sometimes the play doesn't work because a number of factors have come together which are outside of your control. They've come together to derail a particular play. And sometimes that's just what happens, and you can't just sit there saying, oh, this guy's a terrible player, or this guy screwed up irreparably for that to happen. It just happens. And that's part of the glory of football, because even when you do everything right and prepare correctly and maybe even execute everything the way that you should, maybe it won't work out in your favor. And I think we saw a little bit of that on this particular play. I think everything surrounding Brock Purdy right now, whenever Shanahan answers something about Purdy, whenever somebody tweets about Purdy, is just outsized in the way that it's perceived. Because right now, that contract discussion is looming, so people are putting this under a big-time microscope. But what I really, really appreciated about what Shanahan said today is that he's clearly looking at this quarterback situation reasonably. He understands there's other variables and other factors that lead to both quarterback success and quarterback failure. And as long as the 49ers look at it reasonably in the big picture, they will see what is the correct objective truth about Brock Purdy, and it's that he's a very good quarterback who's been thrust into a difficult situation this year. Maybe, I talked about it this morning, maybe the most difficult situation in the league, given the fact the 49ers have the lowest separation numbers in the entire league. And his numbers haven't been as good on the aggregate in 2024 than they were in 2023 because the situation has worsened, just like it would worsen for any quarterback from Joe Montana to Josh Allen in this situation. And as long as the 49ers continue to view things intelligently regarding Purdy in this kind of manner, and I think Kyle Shanahan demonstrated some of that with the way that he talked about Brock Purdy, as long as that happens, the 49ers will take care of business this offseason. They'll find a fair rate to pay Brock Purdy that he also agrees to. And this team will be able to go on and continue building around a really, really good young quarterback who's had the best resume in NFL history statistically over his first 3 years outside of Patrick Mahomes. So when you actually look at this with context, when you look at this in the big picture, there's not much not to like about Brock Purdy, right? We're about to finally make another turn. We've rolled all the way up Van Ness. We were supposed to turn and we abandoned the turn. Great. Thanks, Casper. Where are you going to turn now? Are you going to turn on Union? All right, we're going to turn on Union. We're turning in about 20 yards, maybe 30 yards. Here it comes. The climb up Russian Hill is going to begin. As you guys know, I usually make this ride to go swim in the bay. It is December. It is not warm in San Francisco, but we do not use a wetsuit. So I'm actually not really looking forward to today. I'm looking forward to how I'm going to feel after the swim. But before you get in, especially when you first dip your toes in that water along the shores of San Francisco Bay, you start questioning your decisions in life. Then you see a big sea lion and you start questioning your decisions a second time in life. But right now I'm happy talking to all of you as we work our way up the steep hills of San Francisco in the driverless car. All right, so that's my intel on those three big names. Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel, Brock Purdy. Let you know that Ambry Thomas got claimed off waivers. Isaac Guerrero did not practice today with a hamstring issue. If you have any other questions about what the 49ers are doing, please drop them in right now. Mark Holland happy about the explanation from Kyle Shanahan on the interception. And I'm ready to answer some questions. Probably not going to be able to get into deep financial questions about contracts because I'm in a car right now and I can't put any graphics up on the screen. Who drives better, Margot or Casper? I think that Casper drives better than Margot. Now, Margot isn't a bad driver. She's gonna be very embarrassed. I think it depends where she is. If Margot's driving in California, which doesn't happen very often, she's very careful. But if she's driving on roads that she knows in Tennessee, I joke that it's like Formula One. But she keeps it legal. She's not going too fast. But boy, here's Casper's driving exhibition. This is not Formula One. Casper is inching his way. Slow and steady wins the race. But I've never felt her when Margot's driving, although 99% of the time I'm driving. The only time I was allowed to drive and I'm in the car is if I have to finish an article. So one time we were going back up to San Francisco from Levi's Stadium and I had to finish a piece. So I'm sitting there in the passenger seat. Ooh, Coit Tower, there you guys go. I'm sitting there in the passenger seat and Margot's driving and she's like, driving in California is a completely different beast than driving in Tennessee. All right, so we can see Alcatraz now, and we're about to pass Lombard Street. This is the scenic part of the drive, and I'm ready for more questions. There you guys go. Coit Tower and the bay. I'm about to get into that water. How's Greenlaw? Is he good to go for Sunday? Yep, he said he wants to whoop Miami's ass. He literally said that today. Dre Greenlaw is good to go for Sunday. I think there's a cable car. I think the 49ers can keep both Greenlaw and Hufanga, even with a massive Purdy contract. You know why? Because both of those guys have been hurt here over the past couple years, especially this last year. And the fact they haven't played in all too many games may allow the 49ers to get them back at a relatively discounted price, maybe a one-year deal. I do think it's going to be a priority for the 49ers to bring back Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga. Now, Charvarius Ward, I'm not as sure about, but he also hadn't had the season that he did last season. Obviously, there's some tragic background to that story, but it might be possible for the 49ers to retain Charvarius Ward on one of those one-year deals. We've seen in the past with this team, they've been able to retain DJ Jones on a one-year deal. You know, that was a big one because it set him up for his money from Denver, so it ended up being a win-win. They got one more year out of DJ Jones, and it set him up for a better contract. So maybe something like that happens with Hufanga, Greenlaw, and or Charvarius Ward. Do I think Campbell will sign with another team? Well, it's not happening this year because the 49ers suspended him. I would hope that the league takes a stance against this, and I'm not saying the league office, I'm saying other teams, and they say, you know what, this guy walked away on an opportunity to play professional football for millions of dollars, walked out on his team. No, we're not going to sign the guy. I feel for players like Jason Verrett, who would do anything. Like, imagine what Jason Verrett would do to play football again, with how many times he came back from devastating season-ending injuries. What a slap in the face from Devondre Campbell to players like that who are fighting tooth and nail just to get an opportunity, but their body won't let them. Look at us. We've learned how to pass the cable car. Amazing. But what a slap in the face from Devondre Campbell to players like that. And I think that there's got to be a code in the league, and I think there is. I think the 49ers players, when they talked about this, George Kittle, Charvarius Ward, they definitely alluded to the code in this league that I think that Devondre Campbell violated it. Now we'll see if front offices agree, if Devondre Campbell even wants to continue playing. All right, we're rolling into the Dolphin Club. I've got to get into that water, into the bay. Let's see how close we get to the water. Maybe you guys will get a nice Golden Gate Bridge view after we make this turn here. Fisherman's Wharf, San Francisco. Might be time for a nice bowl of clam chowder after I get out of the water, or I'm going to go to Sam's. We'll see. Here's our turn. Here's the Dolphin Club and the South End Rowing Club. And, hell, do you guys want the view? Give me a thumbs up if you want the view of the Golden Gate Bridge. I could walk over there right now. I think it's a good time to do it. Let me get out of the car. Give me a... Or we're finding a spot to pull over is what's happening right now. Casper doesn't want to get in the way of this guy parallel parking. So there's the water. We're here. I'm going to get out, and then we'll figure out the rest of our lives. Stay with me. So that should leave now. There we go. Casper is on his way. We'll see you next time. In the meantime, we can walk around to the water. Well, I can tell you what, it looks cold. But I can handle it. No wetsuit. I'm going to go off of that pier right there into the water. I can walk up to it, though, for now, before I go into the Dolphin Club. I better hurry, though. Sun's about to go down. The other day, I swam in the dark, and I'll tell you what. I was in this water, swimming, and the only way that I knew that I was going in the right direction, trying to find my way back home, was through the city skyline. Watching the skyline of San Francisco. So that was a rather harrowing experience. But I made it, so it was all good. All right, guys. So long from the city. I'll see you when I get out of the water.